common errors that we see in license applications, being bonds, personnel, and who's listed on your Arizona Corporation Commission, completing background checks, and then being within their time frame, valid and legible IDs, and testing requirements. So make sure that you take a look. We're going to go over these in detail as we go through the slides. They're just the most common. Thank you, Cedric. Next. All righty, the applying for a license checklist. In the meeting invite, you should have received a checklist that looks like this. If you did not receive a copy, it is being added to the chat and can also be found on our website. The checklist is a great tool to use during the application process. It'll guide you step by step through the application. There are two different checklists. The difference between the two checklists is if you're applying as an LLC or corporation, you'll have one extra step in the process. The checklist will help you get the application completed in its entirety, since we developed it to encourage you to do the things that take the most time first. Again, if you did not receive the checklist, we have it available on our website through the link on the slide, and it'll be available in the chat. Alrighty, our first step is going to be understanding who the applicant is. So just how our checklists are divided up, you have the option to apply as a sole proprietorship, partnership, or LLC. As a sole proprietorship, there's not an actual business name. It is your name that is shown on your government issued ID that is named on the license that's issued. You use your name on your contracts, on advertisements, etc. As a corporation or LLC, you would create a company name that is registered through the Arizona Corporation Commission. In order to apply as a corporation or LLC, you have to have it registered through the Corporation Commission first. You do have the option to apply a DBA, also known as a doing business as, to your application. You can contract and advertise under the DBA. DBAs must be listed on the application documents and bond when you submit your application. We do not require that the DBA is registered with the Arizona Secretary of State, but if you do decide it, we highly recommend registering it. Then you reserve it for yourself. If it's not registered, anyone else could register the name with the Secretary of State and put you in jeopardy. So just an option there. Alrighty, license classifications. So in order to go through the application process, you'll need to understand what scope of work you're going to apply for. Knowing your classification will help you understand what type of bond and testing are needed. We have different classifications that are categorized into different scopes. So engineering, anything industrial, public right-of-ways, warehouses, residential contracting, so that's homes, condos, ground-up builds, specialty licenses with more than one options with more specific scope. So if you're doing plumbing, electrical, HVAC, if you're just doing roofing, just doing painting, we have options for those specialty licenses. We do have dual licenses that cover commercial and residential, or commercial only or residential only. If you have any questions on what classification fits your scope of work, we do have listed on our website the scope determination request form. And then all of the scopes are listed on our website as well as for review. If you go through all of the scopes on our website and you're still not sure what license you should be applying for, that scope determination request form will come in handy. You'll submit that to us, we'll review it, and then we'll recommend possible classifications that'll cover the scope of work. All right, next is the qualifying party. The qualifying party is the person who has the experience, hands-on supervisory experience. They are the person that'll be taking the exams for the license that you apply for. The requirements for the qualifying party are very specific. We do need their full name as listed on their ID, their date of birth, social security number, a valid government issued ID, so driver's license, passport. There is a list of acceptable IDs on our website. Information, so address, email, phone number that we can use to get in contact with them if needed. A background check is required for the qualifying party and is valid for 90 days. They will need to complete both the statutes and rules and the trade exam if the trade exam is required. Here in this slide, we have highlighted a few of the common errors when it comes to looking at the qualifying party as an individual on the application. The qualifying party is the person who has the minimum years of experience to qualify for the license. So it needs to be hands-on supervisory education from an accredited college or military experience. They attest to the experience date range and provide reference contact information so that we're able to confirm their experience is valid and related to the license that's being applied for. So on this slide, you're seeing some of those common error stop signs. So make sure you take note of those. They are very common, especially when coming to the qualifying party.
Jade, we have a couple questions in the chat referencing this particular slide in qualifying party. So I'll go ahead and just read those. So one of them is, does the contact person for this have to be the qualified person, or can it be someone like an attorney or someone working, completing the application?
So the contact person that you want for the application, you'll list that on your application. It does not necessarily have to be the qualifying party.
Okay, so they would just need to have that phone number and email, for whoever, and not the qualifying party.
Correct. So contact information for the qualifying party and an additional contact for whoever you want in charge of the application is fine. And then if you have other questions, put those in the chat. Erica will try to respond to those as soon as she can. And then anything else, we will open up Q&A at the very end, and I'll be happy to answer all the questions. Some of those answers will be found throughout the rest of the slides. Okay, waivers. So this is for in-state applicants. If the qualifying party has been on a license before, they have the capability to waive certain exams. If the qualifying party can waive the statutes and rules exam, if that qualifying party was named on an active Arizona license within the last 5 years. Again, it has to have been active here in the state of Arizona within the last 5 years. When looking at the trade exam, the qualifying party can waive the trade exam if they have been on an active Arizona license with the same classification within the last 5 years. Classification has to be exactly the same and active within the last 5 years that they're applying for now. The statutes and rules exam is a broader exam. Every qualifying party takes that test, so it can be used for different classifications. It's the trade that must be exactly the same as the new application. When you submit through the portal will do the check and waive if you meet the requirements. This is why we encourage applicants to use the portal. It will do a lot of that back end work for you and give you less items to upload. So definitely get signed up for the portal if you haven't done so already. Okay, so out-of-state waivers. This is a really common occurrence. If you are licensed in another state, you do have the option to submit an out-of-state waiver. I will start by saying that we do not pre-approve waivers. We can't pre-approve them for many reasons. There is a lot of research that goes into them. Now, with that being said, you cannot waive the Arizona statutes and rules exam based on being licensed in another state. Again, the only way to waive that is to have been listed as a qualifying party on an Arizona license in the last 5 years. The statutes and rules exam is very specific to our state. When it comes to waiving the trade exam waiver, the qualifying party must have been named on that license within the last 5 years, and it has to have been active within the last 5 years. We're looking at a few additional items, such as the scope of work allowed in your other state must be comparable to the license being applied for here. So an example is if you are an electrical contractor in, say the state of California, you can possibly waive the Arizona electrical exam by submitting that out-of-state waiver. The qualifying party must have been listed in the same capacity. So whoever the qualifying individual is in that other state needs to be the qualifying party here in our state. The qualifying party on your application needs to match. We must verify that the qualifying party in your other state did take a trade exam in that state in order to obtain the license. If they didn't take a trade exam in that state, we're not going to be able to waive the exam here. We will verify that there are no unresolved complaints in that state. Anything that would stop you from being approved for a license there can affect us approving a waiver here. It has to be verifiable through the out-of-state licensing board or agency. We like to use California as an example because they have all their information listed on the website. So the people, the classification, status, scope of work, anything we can verify to confirm the license is comparable and possibly waive the trade exam. The out-of-state license information should be provided at the time of application. So when you're doing your application through the online portal, it'll give you the option to select that you're using an out-of-state waiver, and then it'll give you the option to fill in that state, the license number, and all the information that we need. If you mail in or walk in your application, there is an out-of-state waiver form on our website that you'll need to complete and then submit with your application. If we get to a point where we're unable to verify exams or information from the out-of-state waiver, you will be given the option to take our trade exam if we're unable to approve your out-of-state waiver. Okay, so SRE and trade exams. This is another common errors section. We have our two exams, so the statutes and rules and the trade exam. The links for both of these exams can be found on our website under that applying for a license checklist that we went over earlier. You'll be directed to two different websites. So one company for statutes and rules, one company for the trade. For the statutes and rules, it is a computer-based training course with an exam at the end. So you'll go through learning modules, videos, mini quizzes throughout the course, and then at the end, there's one cumulative exam. It's all self-paced, none of it is timed, so it's a really good course. The cost for that is $54, and that includes all the materials that you're going to need. It can be downloaded online, free, the statutes book. We do have an electronic copy of the statutes book. It's on our website, and then you can use that throughout the course as well. The course itself does go through all the information needed in order to pass the exam at the end. And you must register for the statutes and rules exam through the link on our website in order to get that proper exam. So again, that applying for a license checklist. Now for the trade exam, this is where knowing your classification is going to be very important. The trade exam is specific to the license that you're going to be applying for. So you have two options for this trade exam, either online or in person. The exam is proctored. So just keep in mind that if you want to do this from home online, you'll need a camera set up and they do monitor you throughout the exam. You're allowed to have certain books with you during the exam, and they are noted in the PSI bulletin for those specific trade exams. All PSI trade exams cost $66. And then if you're doing a solar exam for like a plumbing including solar, something like that, the solar exam itself is $40. There are study materials available for purchase through PSI and other agencies. We don't have any one that we recommend in particular. You'll want to do some research on those and find one that's best for you. You can contact PSI with any questions about any specific study material, scheduling the exam, knowing what's needed to test online, and their rules and regulations. Once you pass your trade exam and the statutes and rules, those exam scores are good for 2 years on the past date. So if you don't apply for a license within those 2 years, you would need to retest. Alrighty, are you taking the trade exam? So this information is for the trade exam only. On our website, we have a section for passing examinations, and it gives you the link to PSI and their bulletin. The bulletin is very important to look at. It gives a lot of information on the exams and what the exam involves, and the number of questions that it's going to be, the score required to pass, time allowed, and general topics that will be covered. It'll also include reference materials and materials allowed during the exam with you. We have a sample here on the slides, so it breaks down the books that get referenced that are allowed in, that are not allowed in. It's a good tool to have because it'll list those specific books, so specific edition, things like that, that you'll be allowed to actually use during the exam. Alrighty, so this is another common errors tab. This is going to be who will need to be included on the application. So if you're applying as an LLC, owners of 25% or more, members, managers listed with the Arizona Corporation Commission, they must be listed on our application. For corporations, the same, owners of 25% or more, officers and directors with the Arizona Corporation Commission also must be listed on the application Anyone who's listed on the Arizona Corporation Commission must be listed on the application. So that's a big one. People think just because it's the secretary or treasurer that they don't need to be listed, but they do. So just make sure that you're referencing who you list and you're including them on the application. When you include these people on the application, you need to provide their name, their date of birth, their ID. That's a very common error, the IDs. Contact, email, address, and phone number for this person, the title and ownership that they hold, if any, their social security number. And then any person that gets listed on the application must complete a background check and it's valid for the 90 days. All right, background check. So all persons who are listed on the application must complete a background check. We only use one vendor. They're called AccuSource HR. It can be found on the applying for a license checklist. On the portal, you'll be asked for your background check receipt number, and you can't move forward with your application until the background check is completed. Once that background check is completed and you're using our online portal, it should automatically link for you. So one less item that you have to worry about. Any questions regarding the background check, you're going to want to contact AccuSource. Their information is included on the slide. It's also available on our applying for a license webpage. Okay, workers' comp. So if you have employees, you need workers' comp insurance. Per statute, there are only two exemptions to workers' comp. That's a single member LLC, where you're the owner and the qualifying party, and you attest to having no employees. The other option is a two-member 50-50 ownership, where one of these two people are the qualifying party with no employees. These are the only two options for exemption with your application. Anything regarding workers' comp is governed by the Industrial Commission of Arizona. They oversee those statutes. So if you do have questions in regards to workers' comp, their website is on the link and you can always reach out to them with those questions. Alrighty, tiered entities. So these are not required for all applicants. A tiered entity is somebody that is owned, a company that is owned by a trust, another corporation, an LLC. If you are a tiered entity, you'll be required to create a chart similar to the one that is shown on the slide. It shows the flow of ownership, so where the ownership lies and the responsible party for the applicant. Any person or entity owning 25% or more would be listed on the chart. If a person, they would provide their full name, contact information on the application, a copy of their ID, and a completed background check. All charts should end in a person. If it is a situation where it's employee stock owned, it's on the, stock holders or shareholders, then we'll need a statement regarding the ownership for that top tier, that specific tier, stating that there are no persons of 25% or more or companies that own 25% or more of that top tier as well. There is an attestation and signature required by an authorized signer. This would be any authorized person named on the application. So that's a big one. Whoever signs your tiered entity chart must be named on the license application, again, providing their ID, background check, and contact information. There is no specific template on how a chart should be created. You'll use the instructions page as a guide to create yours because every company's structure is different. Okay, bonds. So I dare say this is the most common error that we see in applications. There are three bonds that you can submit with your application: a surety bond, which is the most common, cash bonds, and certificates of deposits. A bond is like insurance for your license. Surety bonds are done through a bond company or insurance company. They will write you a bond for the required amount, and then you pay a premium rate. So similar to car insurance, you'll pay them a premium every term based on the bond amount that you obtain from them. A cash bond, so you would pay the coverage amounts needed in full. So whatever minimum bonding requirement that you have based on your income, you would put that up in cash with us. Now, a certificate of deposit, it's something that you would obtain through your bank. So if that's something you're interested in, go see your bank and they'll go over that information. There is a form that would need to be completed for a certificate of deposit by your bank and yourself. So that's available on our website through our forms page. There is a minimum coverage. Oh, sorry, Cedric. Thank you. There is a minimum coverage based on the estimated volume of work and the license classification that you're applying for. So again, knowing your license classification is going to help you go through this application process. If you go through a bond company listed on the website, they do have access to our online portal. So you would obtain your bond through your bond company. They would go through our bond specific portal and they will file your bond for you and attach it to your application. Alrighty, so what should a bond look like? So this is an example of what the bond form should look like. This is the best tool to show your bond company what your bond should look like. We do have other examples depending on your name situation available on our website. You should have your entity name matching your application and including any DBA that you listed. If you're applying as a sole proprietorship, your full name as it shows on your government issued ID, and then any DBAs that you're listing. The classification should be listed to match what is on your application. So in the example, we have the CR7 carpentry. That's what gets listed on your application. That's what gets listed on your bond. For dual classifications, the sums need to be listed out separately. So again, in the example, we have the 4,250 residential, 2,500 commercial. So if you are applying for that dual license, make sure that your bond company separates the amounts for you. The effective date must be within the last 6 months and it can't be a future date. If your bond is older than 6 months, then you'll need to provide additional documentation to us. So just keep an eye out for that. It does require that it is notarized and the official bond seal from your surety company is listed. So this is also in the example. So again, show this to your bond company. Make sure that they're meeting these requirements so that it's not a deficiency item in your application. Okay, disclosures. So these are possible additional documents that may need to be submitted to complete your application. So such as a prior license disclosure form. So if you've ever been on a license in another state, if that license was revoked or suspended, then statutorily that needs to be disclosed to us by completing that prior license disclosure form. Unlicensed activities. So if you were ever cited or convicted of working without a contractor's license in any state, including Arizona, you need to disclose that by completing the unlicensed activity disclosure form. And then felony charges. So we do review felonies. We do not look at misdemeanors. So you would need to submit the felony disclosure form. And on that form, it has a list of required court documents. So those documents must be submitted for our team to review. Any additional documents that you may need to submit, such as a solar warranty if you're applying for a license that includes solar work. If you want to cancel a prior Arizona license, you can submit it with your application. Just keep in mind that a cancellation of a license is permanent and it can't be reversed. We also have the Arizona license inactivation form. So if you have an Arizona license that you want to place on inactive, you can submit that. It does have a $50 fee, but it lets you place the license on hold for 5 years. Also, there's a notice of disassociation. So this is when the qualifying party is being removed from one license so that they can be added to your application and your license. That's something that you would want to submit with your license application. All of these forms can be found on our website under the forms page, but if you do the application through our online customer portal and you select yes to any of these answers in the disclosure section, it's going to give you that option in the pop-up to go ahead and fill in that additional information for us. Alrighty, fees. So every classification has its own set of fees. So knowing your classification again, any license that includes residential work is going to have a recovery fund fee. This is something that every residential contractor pays into. If you are applying for a commercial only license, you don't pay into the recovery fund. The application fee is listed below. It is a one-time fee and you pay that with your application. That fee is also non-refundable. It is very specific to your license classification. So make sure that you know what you're applying for. We have it broken down so that you know the amounts that you're paying and the total that that equals up to. These can also be found again on the applying for a license checklist. All right, so we've talked about it a whole lot. Following the checklist, again, is going to be the best tool for completing your application in its entirety. So again, if you're applying as an LLC or corporation, you'll want to use that checklist. Again, if the sole prop, follow that checklist. If you are registering as an LLC or corporation, make sure that your company is registered with the Arizona Corporation Commission. That will need to be done prior to submitting your application and using the online portal. Choose your classification, pass the required exams, submitting the background check, making sure you have everyone's ID and what kind of IDs you can use, ensuring that the bond is completed properly. And then at the bottom of the checklist is where some of those additional documents can be found. So it's on our website. It should have been in your email. It's in the chat. Make sure you use this tool. It is a great tool to help you get your application completed accurately. Alrighty, how to submit the application. We're all about our online customer portal. It is fast and convenient and it's easy to use. So making sure that you do that through the portal. You can also do other maintenance items through the portal. So such as address changes, name changes, renewals every 2 years. So those other maintenance items can all be completed through the online portal. Also, once your application is approved and your license is issued, you can obtain copies of your license certificate, your license wallet cards. All of those can be obtained through our online customer portal. If you choose, you can also submit it in person at our Phoenix office, or you can submit it by mail. Just keep in mind that if you submit by mail, you will need to mail in a check or cashier's check for the payment. All right, creating your portal account. So on our website, we have the My Account slash login option at the top of the page. As you can see here in the slide, it'll give you the option to register a new account. And we have a helpful video that goes over creating the account that we recommend watching. It'll guide you through the information necessary to create the account and the next steps once you have logged into your account. Alrighty, so you've created your account. Now you're into your portal dashboard. This is what it's going to look like. You'll see at the top it says ROC Online Customer Portal, and then you're going to have a few options. So where you're going to want to start is by adding a business entity to your account. So you've registered your company with the Corporation Commission. Now you need to come over here to your ROC portal and link your company. If you're a sole proprietorship, you'll just link it. You'll still click that add a business entity, but then you're going to link your name. So when linking an LLC or corporation, you're going to be required to enter in your Arizona Corporation Commission file number and verify that the company is active and in good standing status before you're able to move forward. Once the entity is linked, you can start your application and perform other maintenance items through the portal. You are able to connect multiple companies to one login if you have multiple Arizona licensed entities as well. Alrighty, so starting your application, once you have linked your company, you're going to see your company name under business entities, and then you're going to see that start application button. So you'll click start application, and then it's going to walk you through step by step, completing everything that you need. It'll have instructions, helpful links, everything included in that online portal. Alrighty, so don't forget the biggest items that we talked about. So check the Arizona Corporation Commission. Make sure that all persons that were listed on the application, whoever's listed on your corporation commission is listed on the application. Make sure everyone on the application did complete a background check within the last 90 days. Everyone on the application is going to need to submit a copy of their valid and legible government issued ID. The qualifying party completed the required exams or out-of-state waiver forms that you need, and you've completed the bond and it's ready to submit with your application. If you're using that bond company that's through our portal, make sure that your bond company files it through the online portal once you submit your application. Alrighty, so make sure at the end of this that you check your email. We're going to have some helpful information. You'll want to complete the survey. Our YouTube is going to be linked linked. So the video recording will be on our YouTube. So if you need to go back to it, refresh, you're more than welcome to do that. Again, the applying for a license checklist, I can't emphasize that enough. So just make sure that you utilize that during the application process. When you do submit your application, it's going to ask you if you attended a seminar like this. So make sure that you mark that you attended the seminar. And then DocuSign. So once you have submitted your application, all persons listed on the application do get a DocuSign. Make sure that they complete that because the not submitted until that DocuSign is completed by everybody.